Hello and welcome back to Outside Views, the channel that bravely plunges headfirst into the Brexit quagmire so you don't have to. And today we're turning our spotlight onto a story that's personal, political, and frankly still pretty confusing: Brexit and the fate of EU citizens in the UK. Remember Brexit? Well, of course you do. It's like that guest at a party who promised to leave early, but instead just moves from room to room, lingering awkwardly. Well, for over 6 million EU citizens living in Britain, Brexit has turned everyday life into an administrative obstacle course known as the EU settlement scheme, or as I affectionately call it, the EUSS. The scheme was introduced back in 2019, designed to ensure EU nationals and their families living in the UK could continue their residency rights post-Brexit. On paper, it seemed straightforward enough. Apply for either pre-settled status, if you've lived there less than 5 years, or the more coveted settled status, if you've lived there more than 5 years. Sounds simple, right? If only. Initially, officials estimated that there were around 3 million EU citizens living in Britain. Fast forward to 2025, and we've seen over 8 million EUSS applications covering more than 6 million individuals. Now, either Brits underestimated their popularity abroad, or someone needs to double-check their maths homework. Either way, it was a surprisingly massive administrative effort, the largest immigration scheme the UK has ever undertaken. But here's the problem. Even a tiny fraction of people failing to apply creates a huge human issue. Just a 1% non-application rate means 80,000 people left without status. And in fact, nearly 4 years after the deadline passed in June 2021, we've seen about 250,000 people making late applications. That's 250,000 latecomers scrambling through red tape, trying to explain why they are applying late, often due to lack of awareness or confusion. And sadly, this echoes the tragic experiences of the Windrush generation, long-term residents unaware they even had to apply to remain legally. And this is where things get tricky. Since August 2023, the Home Office has tightened the criteria for accepting late applications. You now need reasonable grounds, which sounds fair, except the definition has narrowed significantly. And meanwhile, specialized immigration advice is in short supply, especially in regions like the east of England, where immigration advisors are rarer than sightings of Bigfoot. Charities and support groups like Gyros in Great Yarmouth are stepping up, but their funding is rapidly diminishing. And so good luck if you're late on the EUSS party, you are going to need it. But applying for EUSS is only step 1. Step 2 is maintaining and accessing your status, something many didn't anticipate. Picture this scenario. A child whose parent made their EUSS application but has since passed away, or they've become estranged, or maybe they've simply lost the password or email associated with their application. Suddenly, that child can't access their own immigration status, effectively locking them out of employment, housing, and basic rights. Not great, right? And this isn't hypothetical. It's happening right now, and it will continue because settled status is lifelong. They need permanent account recovery teams, especially for children and elderly people less comfortable with digital-only statuses. Imagine your grandmother needing to access her EUSS status through a smartphone app. Yeah. Good luck explaining that over afternoon tea. And speaking of problems, let's dive into another juicy Brexit mess: upgrading from pre-settled to settled status. Back in the day, anyone granted pre-settled status had 5 years to apply for settled status. Then the High Court ruled it unlawful to strip rights from people who didn't upgrade their status. Cue Home Office panic. And their solution? Extend pre-settled status by another 5 years and attempt automatic upgrades via HMRC tax records. But what if you're someone without a neat tax record, like a stay-at-home parent or a caregiver? And many, particularly women, don't have a clear paper trail proving continuous residency. They are here, but they can't easily prove it. And this creates a ticking time bomb. Their status is temporarily safe, but uncertainty remains. The Home Office has effectively kicked the problem 5 years down the road, out of sight, out of mind, right? Then there's the absence rule. Many people with pre-settled status don't realize they can't spend more than 6 months per year outside the UK if they want to upgrade. Ignorance isn't bliss. It means some EU nationals are unknowingly losing eligibility for settled status. Worse still, the recent 5-year extension creates confusion, with some wrongly assuming that past absences are wiped clean. And spoiler alert, they are not. And finally, the scheme requires long-term management. EU citizens must regularly generate digital share codes to prove their rights to work and rent property. Sounds futuristic, right? Sure, unless you are someone uncomfortable navigating digital bureaucracy. Charities report that the transition to universal credit already created a flood of people needing help with digital interfaces. And the same will inevitably happen with EUSS. Some people will need digital assistance forever. Imagine trying to explain digital share codes to an elderly relative. It's less Star Trek and more Kafka. And let's not forget about the vulnerable groups. Limited access to free, accredited immigration advice has created a predatory market for advice sharks, unregulated advisors who exploit desperate people for cash. With 56,000 late and repeat applications every month, nearly 4 years after the initial deadline, the advice sharks are feasting. It's a grim, unintended consequence of Brexit bureaucracy. In summary, while the EUSS might look successful by sheer numbers, beneath the surface lies ongoing uncertainty and anxiety. EU citizens in the UK face long-term struggles in securing and maintaining their legal status. Without stable funding for support services and clearer guidance from authorities, vulnerable individuals are left navigating an immigration labyrinth designed by Kafka, administered by Orwell, and explained by Monty Python. And Brexit promised clarity, sovereignty and control, but for EU citizens, it delivered complexity, uncertainty and digital headaches. The scheme isn't a complete disaster, but it's far from perfect. And the UK needs continued support, clearer rules, permanent account recovery teams, and vastly improved digital accessibility. The EU settlement scheme was never a simple one-and-done immigration procedure. It's a lifelong administrative commitment requiring continuous government attention, stable funding, and a commitment to basic fairness. Britain owes EU citizens, who've contributed enormously to its culture, economy, and society, far better than endless bureaucratic nightmares. If Brexit was meant to demonstrate the UK's independence, then surely it must also showcase its integrity in treating EU nationals with dignity, fairness, and respect. And that's our deep dive for today on Brexit and EU citizens. And if you enjoyed unraveling this administrative tangle, or simply enjoy marveling at Brexit's endless surprises, please like, subscribe, and ring that notification bell. At Outside Views, we promise you more insights, more absurdities, and yes, more Brexit. And until next time, stay informed, stay vigilant, and remember, when it comes to Brexit, the devil really is in the digital details. And if you want to see another video right now, the next one is right here in the end screen, right next to a video from my newest channel. I'll see you there. I'll be back.